different mentality now going into like the ultra world, is to do something I know I'm not 100% sure I can do, to challenge yourself to that level. Because at the end of the day, if you went out there and gave yourself 100%, that means more to me than if I had to take a DNF. So definitely a lot from kind of growing up and stuff. I grew up where, definitely sports and stuff were a part of me, but it wasn't until I got into my 20s that you really kind of find out what you're capable of, and you surprise yourself with even just like where you can go. Because if people asked me, 5 years ago, I would have been like, no, I can never run that. I could never finish that. Like, and being a nurse, people say I'm a dumb nurse because they know the health things that can go along with that, and I show up to work a lot of times where people are just like, how are you walking? How can you even fit your shoes? Like, how are you even here? Like, and that comes back to like a lot of people, like they support it, but they just don't get it. And my family's the same way. Like, my parents haven't actually been to an ultra. They support it, but they worry to death you're going to just die out there. So, it kind of comes down to definitely just, finding out like where I can push myself and how I can improve each time. Because there's always things I can improve on. After each race, I try to get back to the drawing board, be like, okay, what could I have done differently? What can I do better? What could I, and you'd be surprised how you can just kind of evolve on things and work on things I can work on. And I feel like it does kind of go into your everyday life. When things get hard, what can I control? What can I adapt to? I feel like it definitely makes you, more tougher just in life in general. But
that's very cool. So, Sean, I guess the same kind of question for you is what got you into running, and then especially what got you into the ultra world?
My story is definitely different. I grew up not being an athlete. I remember playing, baseball, like a lot of people did. Played soccer in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, basketball for a few of those years. Ran track, but I've never been a runner. um, Starting in high school, I was pretty sedentary from about freshman year all the way up until probably age 31, somewhere in there. I tried to start losing some weight, lost a little bit, gained it all back. Finally, about 36 years old, I'd say. I was just done being a bigger guy. So I started walking on a treadmill. That got boring. Started running on a treadmill just for a mile. Pushed that up to 2, pushed that up to 3, and about that point, when I was running about 3 miles on the treadmill, our good buddy Shane Williams, he said, "Hey, we're running this race in Lawrence, one of the Trailhawks races." Uh-huh. And I said, "Man, I don't run with people. I don't run with people. I don't run outside. I'm just the treadmill guy." He said, "Just come run this race." And it just kind of, from there, it exploded. We ran the 5K together. What was it? Shoreline Shuffle?
Shoreline Shuffle.
Shoreline Shuffle. That was my first 5K. I ran a race back in 2012 and the Fiesta run, and I swore off running after that. It was horrible. But once we ran the Shoreline Shuffle, I was starting to run more and more. Started running outside with people. And then it just kind of escalated from there. From there, Shane and I did that 5K together. Then we did the Nighthawk 10 mile together, and we were happy with that. And 10 miles is good. We're not going any farther than that. And a few months goes by. Hey, you want to run a marathon? Yeah, sure. So we ran the marathon out there. That was our first marathon. Hey, you want to run a 50K? Ran Sanders Saunter out there. And it just kind of snowballed from there. So
wow.
Now, get started.
Yeah, so mine's pretty wild. I actually knew Jonathan in high school. We played basketball together, Jonathan Prosser, which is funny because like all these years later, like he's the one who got me into it. But in high school, I played basketball, all the sports. Went to a small school, so we weren't great, and my brain was just focused on partying and living that lifestyle. So sports for me were just social activities. Didn't take it seriously. Kind of lived the crazy life all the way until my 20s, and then it wasn't until 2020 when Jonathan, one day after church, it was Jonathan and Justin. I'd been watching Jonathan's running journey for years, or however long he'd been doing it at that point, and Justin obviously too, he runs, and they'd been hounding me for so long, just come out and run. And so finally after church one day, he's like, hey, I'm going to take my wife. We're going to go to Shunga Trail. Justin's coming. I'm bringing the kids. Why don't you bring your son? And we'll just run a little bit. And I was like, okay. So I went out there and then met with Jonathan and Justin, and we ran 3 miles. And I took off with Justin, and I was surprised at how well I stuck with him. And I had just terrible beat up shoes. I got blisters off 3 miles. I mean, it was terrible. And then, so we did that, and then about a week after that, they conned me into doing a trail run at Burnett's Mound, and that was my longest run to date up to that point. And it was a 6-mile run, and I remember Jonathan coming up and just looking at me and saying, dude, you're a trail runner. And I was like, whatever, like, stop saying that. I'm still running in my Walmart tennis shoes, like. And so I think it wasn't too long after that, maybe a week or two, he sends me the registration information for Flat Rock 50K. So which was in April. So this was March, maybe, something like that. Yeah, no, it was April, and then Flat Rock was in September. So I had a few months to get ready. I had the summer to get ready, and at that point I was like, well, I think I need to get actual trail shoes now, and yeah, from there it just kind of spiraled. But I'm kind of weird. Like I got a lot of my personal distance best through pacing. My first PR distance was pacing Blaine at Hell Creek 2 years ago. I got 40 miles, and until this race, that was my longest. So I jumped from 40 miles to 100. I actually joked with all the guys pacing me. I was like, now I can get the 50-mile sticker, the 100K sticker, and the 100-mile sticker. Why do all these people do all these races? You just get them all done at once. So, and that's just kind of where it's, and then, obviously getting into the Buckleheads and then meeting everybody, and it's wild. It's crazy to think like where I was just a few years ago to where I am now, and just the people that I know and the community that I have running and outside of running as well. I mean, it's just, it's been good.
I thought it was funny. So I was supposed to pace Blaine when you paced him.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
dude, that was such a fun weekend.
Right, but I had to bow out. Like my sister was leaving town, and I felt really bad.
Yeah.
Because that was Blaine's first 100-miler or whatever.
Yeah.
And I remember I told him I would, and I'm glad because it all I think you got the bug right there.
Oh man, dude, I learned so much that weekend. Like,
yeah,
that was like my first bite of like running through the night, seeing the sun come up. I was like, all right, I think, I learned a lot that weekend. It was good. So
collectively, you've only been running for
2 years,
2-3 years. That's wild.
4 years, I guess. Yeah, 4 years now.
But I think it's cool.
No, sorry, it was 2022. I said 2020 earlier. It's 2022 when I started.
I was going to say, I was like, I thought that,
2022, my bad.
Yeah.
So 2 years. Yep.
Yeah. But I think just, the cool thing about this sport and ultra running and running and doing all this stuff, like we have 5 people in the room, all 5 totally different stories, totally different means to get where we are and goals and all that stuff, right?
Right. And I think one thing, again, you hear over and over is how, you got to be somewhat selfish to run ultras because you spend a lot of time out training, but everyone is always selfless. Everybody in this room has paced other people and helped people in races. Like you're sitting out there in the cold or the heat, and we don't have to do that. Yeah. Dan, you ran 20 miles with me at Hill Creek. That was fun. And then Amber did 20 miles. And
I talked your ear off, man.
People are doing like ultra distance running, and it's not even a race. They're doing it simply to help other people, and you guys have all helped out. And even training, there's times you guys aren't training for anything, but you're going, well, I'll go run 20 miles with so-and-so because they need to get a long run in for the race, and you don't have a race plan for a year. So, like, you guys all sacrifice your time. It's just, it's a different world. It really is.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if we want to jump right into this yet, but I think before we hear kind of the details of your guys' races, especially since Dan and Sean, this was your first ever 100, one thing I'd like to hear from all three of you is why did you pick this race? And I know, Katie, you ran the Prairie Spirit back in March, which is, it's on the same course, but it's just a different time of year. So again, I just kind of want to know why you guys picked this for your first one, and then Katie, what made you decide 6 months later to go out and take on this course again?
Yeah.
So I don't know. We can just reverse it this time. We'll let Dan go first.
Yeah. Mine's pretty easy. I just picked it mostly because it was flat, and I'd seen all these guys and people around in our group doing the long distances through the mountains and elevation, and I desired to do that, but I wanted to get that 100-mile distance under my belt, and I knew training for flat would probably be a little easier. I know there's different muscles that you use or the same muscles you use on flat, but for me it was like I can train anywhere for a flat race. I could just run around my block if I need to. So if life gets busy, schedule gets busy, if I'm not getting out to trail, it's like, man, if I'm training for a trail race, it's like, if I'm not running trail, it's a waste of time. But since it's a flat race, I can just kind of get away with running around my block. So for me, it was just it seemed like the easiest option for 100, even though it wasn't easy, but it seemed like the easiest for my first.
I was going to ask, was it be careful what you wish for? Because
yeah, I knew it wouldn't be easy per se, but yeah.
How many steps did Garmin say that you took?
I was actually trying to look at that. It split it up into 2 days, so I'll have to go back and look. But I think Sunday morning I had like 60,000 or 59,000, and that was just from Sunday morning.
I don't think I've ever even looked to see how many steps I took in a race.
No, I mean, I think it's roughly about 2,000 steps a mile, I think, on average. So
probably 200.
Take that times 100.
It probably depends. The fast guys that have really long strides, maybe it's less, but I'm not a fast guy. So I do have one more question for you.
Yeah.
So what were you doing when you signed up for this race? Tell us that little story.
Yeah, we can't let that go. It's Ed's fault. No, so we were actually training for the Eternal Damnation race, the Last Man Standing, out at Wilson Lake. And I'd signed up for that. This was last year. When was that? This past year. Anyway, we went out and we did 5 loops of that course, me, Caleb, Ed, and Jonathan. And we were on our way back, and Ed kind of starts doing his Ed things. And he's like, hey, Dan, when you doing your first 100? I was like, I think it's time. I was like, I want to do some gnarly trail, but at the same time, I also just want to get that 100-mile distance under my belt and then see what would be next after that. So I think rail to trail would be good. And he's like, well, the Trails Extravaganza is in October. That'd be a great rail to trail. I said, yeah. It's like, I'll look into that and probably sign up for it. And he said, well, you got your phone. You could just look at it right now. And I was like, all right. So I kind of start looking at it. And he's like, well, since you're looking at it, why don't you just press that little green register button? He's like, you just press it, and then you put your name, and here, look. He brings up his phone. He's like, just do this.
I'll show you.
Go right here. And so then, and he even recorded it too, which is funny. He recorded me finally clicking the confirm button. I'll admit, after I pressed the button, I kind of felt a little, what just happened? What did I allow Ed to do to me just now? But obviously it was good. Yeah, in a way. No, but it was good. I'm thankful. That's the thing with this group is you have people that push you to do hard things in a healthy way.
Yeah.
We joke about it and bust chops about it, but it's ultimately because, Ed, and everybody, they want to see people doing awesome things as well because they believe in us. And that's the coolest part of it all. If Ed didn't think I could do it, he wouldn't have told me to do it.
Yeah. I really liked what Mile 90 Photography posted yesterday. They go, each fall, the Kansas Rails to Trails Extravaganza, just like its spring sister race, Prairie Spirit, lays out a banquet of distances that challenge newer runners and tempt more experienced athletes to set a new personal record.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to Katie's new PR here in a minute. but yeah, that's like, I think, who were we talking to? Just what is great about this particular area, especially in Kansas, you have all kinds of different options of like trail races and ways to like push yourself, because you do have a Rails to Trails race, and we have like in Topeka Land and Trail that isn't as daunting as say Flat Rock or the Hawk, or even, but the Hawk is a very challenging course too, and that's just what's cool about this area.
Yeah. So
awesome.
Very cool. All right, Sean, why'd you pick Rails to Trails Extravaganza?
My reason was pretty similar to Dan's. I'd say that when I was looking into races, I'd say that I was scared of elevation. I did not really want my first 100 to be a DNF due to elevation, because I was scared of elevation. During my training plan, though, I feel like I became less worried about the hills. The hills during my training plan probably helped me, I would say, quite a bit. Yeah. So I got out there on, out at Call River. I ran 6th Street, which has quite a few hills, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
I just kind of wanted a flatter race to be my first one. But I guess since Dan said whose fault it was for his sign up, I'd say that my sign up was Devin's fault. Because we were volunteering out at Prairie Spirit for Audrey's first 100 miler, and there's not much to talk about at 4:00 in the morning other than who hasn't ran 100 miles. And looking around the room out there, I was one of two, and one of those guys was already signed up for his. And so I just kind of stood there quietly hoping that nobody noticed me, but everybody for sure did. So
and then the rest was easy peasy.
Yep, the rest was easy peasy.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So, Katie, same question. Like I said, I know you ran Prairie Spirit back in March. I think I paced you for some of that. And you had a great race, like a fantastic time. So what made you decide to go back out and do this again? Same course.
Well, since I took on Cowboy early September, and that was my first DNF, so that kind of really made me go back to the drawing board, like what could I have done differently there. And being, Alicia needed some volunteers for Flat Rock, I went out there, volunteered, and she was able to get, race credits and stuff. So this race was basically nothing for me. And I was like, really thinking, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to beat my time, try to get myself some redemption after Cowboy, because I'm taking it on again, and definitely trying to work on some things that I would do differently, taking on that extreme of a thing, because it's very similar to Rails and Trails. It is flat and it is like open, and it's just very similar terrain and stuff. So that's why I was like, kind of at the end of the day, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go out and see if I can push myself to get a PR for this one, since I knew how to kind of try to shave off some time from what I did in March. So, and then also just kind of try to work on some things I need to work on for Cowboy next year. So I would say that's kind of why I signed up.
Yeah, and you got the PR, right?
Yeah, I don't know how. That was...
You crushed it, that's all.
Yeah.